Hello, how you guys doing? I wanted to make a video, and this time it's called, basically it's accountability. And it's going to be a couple videos. One's going to be about these two gentlemen, and this is geared to the black community. And the other one is where this woman points out on her podcast why is that this young man who's trying to build a school for young black boys ain't getting help from ain't getting help, but the only people you would think that it'd be people that opposite that look like him is come against him. No, it's people that look like him. He's trying to do something for the future, and you had people that in his own community is coming against him. Watch this video, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Grace and peace, you guys. April Chapman here with the Standard of Truth podcast, where we discuss all things social, cultural, political, and theological from a biblical perspective. I wish I could say that I was in better spirits, but I'd be lying because I'm not. The topic that I want to discuss today was very unsettling to me. It made me very upset. And I've titled this video, Blacks Won't Help Themselves, so should we stop trying? I know that's a very, very provocative title, and at this point, I really don't care. And it's because the video that I'm going to cover today, it infuriates me. It infuriates me with a level of anger and vitriol of the worst kind. So I'm going to do my best to try to just dial it back a little bit, because I was so bothered and so annoyed by the information that I'm going to share with you today that I had to pray, you guys. I had to pray. Now, of course, we are supposed to pray without ceasing, but I had to stop and ask the Holy Spirit to destroy the calcified areas of my heart as it relates to this issue. So if you see a little bit of righteous indignation, know that it is really coming from a place of being angry at evil and angry at wickedness. Now, in the past, I have covered King Randall of the X School for Boys down in Albany, Georgia. And King Randall, he is a young man that I greatly admire, because of this, instead of him talking about, what we should be doing, he instead just puts his head down and he actually gets on his grind and he does what we should be doing. This young man exhibits a level of maturity and tenacity that you don't typically see in young men his age. And so I believe that if anybody should get support and adulation for a job well done, it should be him. Lately, I have been talking about what a devoted family builder is, and he strikes me as a young man that fits the profile of a devoted family builder, which brings me to my next point. I'm going to share a video from King Randall's Instagram page concerning another roadblock that he has hit as it relates to developing the property that his organization owns down in Albany, Georgia. And I want you to listen to what King Randall has to say.
Recordings just got better. Hey, it's Dana from StreamYard. I'm so excited to announce that local recordings are...
To what King Randall has to say.
County Commission today, they voted to deny our request for rezoning for 24 acres of the 40 acres that we own for our multi-purpose facility that we were trying to put out there for children and underprivileged children who don't have any facilities in that area to service them with tutoring or basketball or anything. Those kids are just kind of out there and have no recreation. And so we wanted to bring mentors and bring basketball courts and bring, just automotive repair, etc. We were trying to bring that out there to the neighborhood, and they voted to deny it on today. So the video I'm gonna put under this tweet, you'll be able to see what happened at the commission meeting today. It was so crazy because these people accused us of possibly doing fentanyl and cocaine with the children, and I mean it was crazy the things that they were saying about our school and our boys. And I only put a few brief things on there that they said because I didn't want the video too long. And to see that all of the people who voted no were all black, and the people that voted yes were white and one black person. And I live in a majority black town, and my city and the community here always screaming systematic racism and racism all the time when everybody who's in every major position here is black. And every time that somebody is trying to do something that could benefit the children here, it's like we get asked 1,000 questions. But today, you know, they approved alcohol licensing for this, and they approved this restaurant and this place and that place, all this little stuff. But when it comes to trying to help children, then I get 1,000 questions asked, and I confronted them and told them, I'm like, how did you guys not ask us about the actual children? They asked for no data, no statistics, no information about the actual children, all asking me about parking spaces and all that stuff, but nobody asked about the actual children that we be trying to serve in that community. And they said that the older people there matter more than the children who wanted who want this facility out there. Those children weren't able to come speak for themselves because they were in school this morning, but they said the older people there matter more than the children, and that was absolutely absurd to me. But please, again, we're still going to keep working. That doesn't stop anything. We're still going to build out there. We just can't do that type of facility, but we still can put residential basketball courts, etc., out there. So we're still going to build. We're just going to do something different now with it. But please continue supporting us at extraboys.org. This is why I have been on social media for quite some time, and but you can watch the video next. But please follow us at theexforboys.org, THEXFORBOYS.org. Thank you so much. Peace.
Okay, so you saw that video where King Randall was basically expressing his frustration with what happened. They pretty much blocked the rezoning permit, and he won't be able to build the facility that he was trying to build into that community. Now what I'm going to do is I want to go ahead and play just a few excerpts from the Daugherty County Commissioners meeting so that you can hear from the residents themselves tell you why they do not want the X School for Boys to develop this particular type of facility in their community.
Neighborhood watch out there, and I'm rising opposition to the project this morning. I'll start with the last thing Randall said. We are concerned about farms in the neighborhood. You know, you don't bring that kind of atmosphere in a retired community. You know, we have a recreation facility on the other side of the neighborhood, Robert Cross Park. We have a multi-purpose building over there. You know, you can go over there and do whatever you want to do. You know, we don't need another facility, you know, on the other side of the neighborhood, you know, with, like Randall said, people that we don't know anything about. Plus, this project is privately owned and we can't enter it. You know, we're not permitted to go into the place, you know, okay? So, you know, my imagination, you know, tells me, you know, well, since you don't know what's going on, you know, what can you raise sand about unless something spilled over out into the neighborhood? So this could happen. I'm not saying it will, but it could, you know, okay? And if you're going to have a science lab or something in that building, you know, and you got guns, you know, okay, you know, it's a chemical reaction in that, you know, and,
oh my
you know,
God.
I don't know if you were really, you know, fixing cocaine or fentanyl. I don't know what you're doing in there, you know, but I know that this situation isn't open to us, you know, and it's
Oh my God.
10 feet from our neighborhood. You know, I mean, you can walk out your door and you'll be in and we at Southgate, Lily Pond, Riverdale, Blue Springs,
They say call him a drug dealer.
disapprove of this facility, you know, because
Wow.
of the unknown, you know, and like one of the commissioners asked, you know, well, what would later be the purpose of the land for somebody else to come use it, you know, for a different purpose, you know, what if you know, hold your end of the bargain, and do what you said you were going to do. Talk is cheap, but our lives will be changed by this. So I wish you all would deny it.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Barbara Dawson.
Brown people. See how some black people are? That's why black people can't get nowhere.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Barbara Dawson, and I've been living out in Southgate for 30 years. I'm all for helping kids. I used to work with abused kids. But as far as bringing this out in our neighborhood, where this is a family, neighborhood, I have talked with a lot of the neighbors out in the neighborhood, and they are against this. We have a lot of the elderly that walks down Burnaby up to Martin Luther King, and they're saying that they would be afraid to walk down there, just coming to our neighborhood, because this is not, what we want in the neighborhood. And what we want, if you want to build something, build more homes, because this is a family, neighborhood. Build more homes. And from my understanding, Mr. Randall has other buildings that he can use for this that he has, for the boys' home, that he's not using for anything. So if he want to have a boys' home, use the facility he already have and not bring this out in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dawson.
So I'm gonna go ahead and stop it right there because help me, Holy Ghost. Listen, I'ma just shoot it straight with y'all, okay? I don't wanna hear another Negro talk about white supremacy and racism. I don't want to hear it. I don't even want to hear about your myth of oppression and white supremacy. I'm done. You know why? Because the biggest threat that prevents black people today from flourishing, it's not white supremacy, but it's other black people, and I don't care who gets offended by that statement, nor do I care if it makes you clutch your imaginary pearls. When I was examining King Randall's situation, probably late last year, at first I was like, okay, it's only the black elite, that are doing this, right? It's the Afrostocracy. That's the segment of the black elite that I refer to as the politicians, the professors, the pundits, the preachers, and the performers. I was like, it must be them. Those are the main ones and the main reasons why we are so stuck and why forward progress doesn't take place. But then I just realized, no, it's not just the black elite. It's these colored communists. Those are the ones that get on my last nerves. You see, I live here in Metro Atlanta, and Atlanta is the bastion of colored communism, if you ever seen it, and they are dealing with a segment of colored communism down there in Albany, Georgia. They're dealing with the same thing. I'm going to deal with a few of the talking points, right, that this gentleman brought up. Right? I don't know this man personally. I'm just gonna go by based on the public words that he spoke. He talked about how this facility is not open to us. Whoever the us is, I don't know. He can answer that, but I can assume that when he says that this facility is not open to us, he would imply that this is privately owned, so therefore it's not public use, which typically something that's for public use is government owned, government sponsored, government funded. Track with me for a minute. He then goes that we're concerned This is a black man, an older black man, saying he is concerned about firearms. Firearms. Now, contextually, this mindless Muppet is not thinking through the category of the fact that the Second Amendment is our American right. And if he knew anything about what King Randall has going on, he would know that he teaches responsible gun ownership and firearm training so that these young boys are empowered and understand the proper use of firearms. Now, mind you, he ain't afraid of the firearms that Pookie and Ray Ray and them have out on the street. But now all of a sudden he's concerned about firearms, right? He talked about saying how, this is a facility that is privately owned. That was the first buzzword that piqued my spidey sense to smoke out the communist Marxist minded Negroes. When he talked about, how it's privately owned and, we won't have, any control over it, or, we won't be permitted to go in there. So we don't know what's going on in there. And then he says, and then, my imagination, I said, hold on, is this a whole grown man who's not telling you what he knows or what he thinks, but rather he's talking about what he feels? This is what the matriarchy produces. This grown man is telling you what he feels, not based on facts, data, statistics, the observable results that King Randall has with what he's doing with these young boys, but rather he talks about, my imagination is what could happen. Not saying it's actually happened, but what could happen. Notice that fear-mongering language that you heard from him. And then he talked about this one topped the cake, the science lab. He's like, well, if there are firearms and a science lab, that sounds like a chemical reaction to me. So basically, the assumption is that whatever is going on from a scientific perspective could cause a chemical reaction because of the mere presence of a firearm. And the next thing you know, this man done imagined the whole community just blowing up. These mindless Muppets, I'm sorry. This is what the feminized matriarchy yields. This is what the feminized matriarchy, Marxist indoctrinated baby boomer generation, this is what we're dealing with. These colored communists, the idea, if King Randall is successful, right? This track this. If King Randall is actually successful, these boys who were once in the streets, wreaking havoc on the community, getting in all kinds of trouble, but if these boys who were once in the street, and he manages to teach them how to be upstanding young men and quality citizens and pillars in the community, you do realize that is a threat. That is a threat to the current matriarchal system. And the weak men who are controlled by this same matriarchal system, they're in cahoots with one another, and they are against what King Randall actually is trying to do. And why is that? The reason why they're against it, because the civil rights operation of the 1960s completely destroyed the Negro Americans' will to do for self. Notice how they said, well, you can put this facility up, right? But you need to put it somewhere else because we can't control it. My question is, who is the we? Who is the we? Also,
right.
The current matriarchal system that has been flourishing within the black community, it is run by black women and weak men who do not believe in a purposeful patriarchy.
Oh, Jesus.
You have the older black men who've fallen narrative, and they're the ones that provide cover for the black women. They're nothing more than the henpecs. This blackness is rooted in matriarchal squalor to where I can't even identify. I don't know who those people are. Those are not my people at all. Unless these young black boys are acting a fool, and then we can appeal to the government for some sort of solutions, then they're fine with that. But the moment we attempt to do something that has a proven track record of success, it is too much like right. And so therefore they gotta put the roadblock up.
You know where that comes from? What she said about the civil rights? What it is that this relates to political, and let's go by what she's saying. This comes from your Democrat Party. See, your Democrat Party that kept black folks on for 40, 50 years produced this mindset. That's basically what she's saying.
These communities, especially those that are occupied with these dyed-in-the-wool older Democrats who cannot function in freedom, they cannot wrap their minds around the vision of what King Randall is trying to do. And do you want to know why? It's because, think about it, how many programs do you need for a black man who can do for self? None. You don't need a government program for that. And if the government is not needed, then black women won't have access to daddy government's overreach, nor will any of those darn county commissioners and city council people really have a job, because you won't need big budgets for wasteful spending if the community actually changes. Like if someone actually steps up and does something meaningful that actually changes the community, social work, the public school system, the county employees, you'll have an entire generation of what's left of these baby boomers who are steeped in Marxist ideology.
Exactly.
So therefore, all that King Randall represents, it is really destructive for their way of life and for their whole existence. Because what they really...
Hold on, let me stop right here. She's exactly right. And who do you have in the White House right now? Joe Biden and his administration. And then you got this mayor and your Democrat shields is in these cities where migrants, where they give millions of dollars and try to house these illegal immigrants that broke the law. Coming over here, take away from the people that have been homeless in Chicago, New York, and other places since the beginning of the recession, somewhere before the pandemic and everything else. But they'll give their money to that, and like you said, these Marxists, like she said. So therefore, that's what they train. But meanwhile, the president just sent billions of dollars to Ukraine, sent $1 billion, put in packages in weaponry and all this stuff for helping other folks. Meanwhile, at the same time, black people across the country, like other poor people, are suffering and high population of homeless, suffering in incarceration, suffering in aspect. You have seen other people speak on this. The greatest threat is like every time, like, why don't you do for self? Try to do something for yourself. No, it's like, no, it's almost like the plantation. That's why the past relates to the present. Because it's like it was some black people that want to get off the plantation during the time of slavery, but you got some black people that want to stay on the slave plantation. Say, no, we can't do nothing out there. They're gonna kill us out there. We good. But after you witness that slave master doing everything horrible imaginable to you as a human being, you still that's part of being a patriarch. Yeah, I know they called me N-word and they killed my grandchild. I'm sorry, delete my grandchild, but that's part of patriarch. Yeah, I know that they did something to George Floyd, but that's part of the patriarch. But that's all right. See, what did he do anyway? And these same Negroes, what did he do? He must have did something. No, you see it on tape. Then it's like you be like that one black woman. I don't know why all this shooting going on down in Jacksonville. And then they start saying, "Come on now, come on, black people." After she in her community down in Jacksonville, Florida, saying that, "Come on now, black people." We can, when Governor DeSantis did his thing and don't want your kids knowing nothing about it. Because you got some Marxist woman who's a Democrat with is okay for a Republican governor. After the horrible event, 3 black people lost their lives by a crazed gunman. And she said, "Come on now." And then when the people confront, you seen the video. Come on now, the governor's bringing gifts now. As long as he brings gifts, I'm good. But when someone decides to find alternative, you get this. See, and then you got black folks, and you look on Phil Scott Afro Diaspora channel, you had this black woman trying to criticize black people because they won't vote for one party and stay on the same party that does nothing for them. They do nothing for you. And they give money and billions and billions and millions of dollars to other people. They help Ukraine. They help people from Afghanistan. They help people and that came into this country. They just gave them assistance. Then they putting up these migrants in areas where people been living there for generations after generations. Then they use a black face to do a black mayor. And black people, this is what you got to understand. We got to get out of this. It's good. It was a time when we got the first black man, the first black woman. Now it ain't that no more. You got looking like any other person and saying where they really coming from. And it ain't got to do where is their mindset, because they think of like the people who are like the racist people, keeping you oppressed and agreeing to keep you down. Come on now, keep on dancing. And they gonna come with the thing. And you know what Joe Biden gonna do, and all these other Democrats when it comes November? Well, I gave you a Supreme Court leader. I give you what you want. I gave you that statue of Emmett Till, which it was already a memorial on Emmett Till. The one part about I gave you Juneteenth. Remember black people? I gave you Juneteenth, but he didn't ask for black people. Black people didn't ask for that. And it was benefit everybody else. See, it got to benefit everybody. This is what she's talking about. It got to benefit everybody else but black people. And it's black people that's doing it, that's okay with it. Everybody else, the Juneteenth, come on black people. I selected a black Supreme Court justice. That she said in the interview she don't know between whether, ask her what is a man and what's a woman. She couldn't define what's between a man and a woman. That tells you a lot. Then I selected a black general. I can't be racist, but yet he tell black people, you don't vote for me, you're not black. Yeah, a Democrat, your president, Democrat Party, and then said that Donald Trump was. Everybody was, Donald Trump is violent. He put up the wall. Now you have your border patrol people can't even control what's coming over the border. Then you have on other content creators. These people are committing. Some of the people that came through that border committed crimes, what they did in their home country over here in New York. In New York, they had some incidents up there. But this is on this one party, and this other content creators can show you what happened. It's like black people are the biggest one that stopped other black people. She's right. It's absolutely right. That's why I said sometimes there's a division. And in black people, you're a black person, I said you got to do things in small group. Stop thinking that's a collective, because everybody that share your skin ain't your kinfolk. They spiritual ain't aligned with you. We so divided. That's why they know that stuff. We divided on religion. We divided on political. We divided on that. I even talked to my friend Jones, and they after, he was telling me that his parents get upset with him because he won't pick Democrat or Republican. Then he won't be Democrat. Then he said, well, his mom said, you must be a Republican. He said, no, I'm independent. Why you got to be like that? Why is it that you got to pick a party? It's called the American choice. Why do you have to? You see, it almost go back. It's almost go like it's another black person telling you, well, if you don't like chitlins and collard greens, something wrong with you. And you be like, you can be a black person. I don't like chitlins and collard greens. Well, you ain't black enough. What? That's how kind of mindset we got. That's the truth. I mean, it sounds silly, but you know that some people would say the most ignorant stuff like that to one another. But I'm going to get back to the video. But this is what she's saying. Don't think for yourself. That's basically what it is. Don't think for yourself.
And for their whole existence. Because what they really want is more government and more control. Anytime a conservative black man tries to stand on his own 2 feet, what is the first thing that you notice that they do? They have to demonize and attack his character. Like, let's accuse him of teaching the boys how to cook crack, right? Let's put the thought into your mind that they might be running guns. We don't know. We don't have any proof of that. We don't even need any proof of that. All we have to do is say it to make you question the goodness and the goodwill of what King is trying to do. Here's where I am with this whole situation. The idea that white supremacy is the problem. White supremacy is nothing more than black inadequacy. Because one, it's not true. I don't know any white person that is supremely ruling and reigning over me in any way, shape, form, or fashion.
Right.
And then two, it is based on an external characteristic and nothing about your God-given rights, which is your essence and your worth, has anything to do with the color of your skin. I am hoping that King Randall doesn't give up on individualism and the idea of doing for self, but I'm done being constrained by the constructs of my color. That is not me. That is not who I am. I am a Christian. That is where my identity and my value and my worth comes from. My race is the race of the people of God, not this ethnicity stuff. But let's be clear, I am in no way affiliated with those people. Christians are my people, those who want to do the will of my Father. I choose character over color and Christ over construct all day long, because those Negro Nazis, those are the worst ones. What King Randall is experiencing, he is experiencing discrimination of the highest sorts and of the worst kind. Because see, this is a man, he is doing what men are supposed to do. And if boys learn how to be more productive than menacing, right? When they withdraw and reject the mutt culture that's the menacing, the unruly, and the thuggish culture and behavior, if they divest from that, then the whole prison pipeline that comes from black culture gets destroyed.
Boom.
And they can't have that.
Boom.
The Marxist, communist minded Nazi Negroids, they can't have that.
Exactly.
They can't see,
Exactly.
they do not want to see that he has what he has done as successful.
Exactly.
To them, what he has done is sabotage their way of life.
Exactly.
What he has done is he is intruding on the fact that we like things just the way we are. See, we got that city or that county run facility over there, you know, and we got access to that. But private enterprise, they are threatened. And King, which I don't understand, King gonna mess up the money. All of the money that is flowing to these dead-end, forever failing programs, that spigot dries up.
Right.
They like the systemic welfareism.
Exactly.
They're like just like a bunch of baby mamas not being able to control and manage their own children. They like that. They love seeing that in the community.
That's true.
They cannot have a disciplined man
Right.
walking around.
Right.
They need high rates of illegitimate children.
Right.
And they'd rather notice
Right.
what the black woman said. You know, we built some homes. They'd rather what she really is probably saying is they'd rather affordable housing. That's code word for some more government funded housing. They'd rather more projects. But they hate the idea of not having any control over this facility because it's not a government facility with government oversight and government regulation.
That's true.
It's completely independently owned and run by a private entity that they can't control.
Right.
What you have to understand is the communists, they don't believe in, one, they definitely don't believe in patriarchy, and two, they definitely don't believe in free enterprise known as capitalism. No, the communists, they don't believe in a nuclear family, all that, you know, this is a family neighborhood. What kind of families? What kind of families are you talking about? Because in order for a community to be strong, it's got to start with its men. And King Randall is trying to raise up the next generation of these men who will then be learning how to be devoted family builders.
Exactly.
And Lord willing, they will pair bond.
Exactly.
Unless he got a female down there doing the female version of what he's doing, I don't know. I don't know how they gonna build families, but with the state of the current state of the female population. But the communists, they don't believe in a nuclear family. They don't even believe in monogamy, and they definitely don't believe in purposeful patriarchy. I wanna know who is the they down there in Dougherty County. The they that, you know, is controlling and putting these roadblocks in his way. That's what I want to know. Because the people who looked like him were the ones who were treating him as if he's the enemy versus the solution to a decades-old problem.
Yes, sis, I hear you on that one. What happened is that sometimes it's black people, it's another hand behind it. And it's like everything from people, whatever's from the past repeats itself in the present. This stuff been going on, man. And, you know, and it's like Lyndon Johnson said, I'm going to keep these Negroes, and he didn't say Negroes, he said the other word, for the next 60, 70 years. And when that president at that time said that, it came to pass. Black people were under this Democrat spell. And then you hear from black and white people that say that the Democrat was the original Dixiecrats, which was, and you know, there's a story about that of the KKK, and they mentioned that how the way it switched over politically, and it's like it's the truth, and so you got black people, and they use, and did you know that Martin Luther King, you know, since we want to go there, since everybody put him in high regards, did you know Martin Luther King, his voting registration when he was alive was a Republican, and then Malcolm X was a conservative? They weren't Democrats, but even though they met with Lyndon B. Johnson. See, this is what some black people don't know. Martin King, I believe he was a Republican. He was, at that time when he was living, he was a Republican. It's a fact. He was a Democrat, but they used the manipulation of control of black versus white, you know, a certain demographic of white people. Then they manipulate and said that the white people and the Republican is more discriminate than the white. And I'm your friend, conservative and liberal. That's where it came from. You about to hear it on this next video.
How does this weird
tiny device help with dust and airborne pollutants. Studies show that air pollution can be...
It is not a race problem in America.
When you say that, a lot of people would disagree with you, and they would say, how could you say that? You know, maybe maybe it wasn't back then, but you don't know the America today, you know? You don't know what's going on with the challenges they're facing and the level of racism they're experiencing today in the marketplace, because maybe you are disconnected, kind of like how you were when you thought everybody was black until you joined the Army and you realized that your unit, only 8 were black. What do you say to the people that literally 100% disagree with you and they say there is racism today? It is a challenging time today. What do you say to them?
I say, look at the evidence. Look at the evidence. You know, a lot of people are like the farmer that came to the creek when it was like coming, it was 3 feet high and moving at about 20 miles an hour, and he forced a mule in and they were swept down the creek. A year later, he comes to the same crossing. This time it's only 6 inches. The mule refuses to go in because the mule had good memory but poor judgment. Conditions were not like they were back in segregation when I was locked up twice in Mississippi. The conditions have changed, but many of us have, but again, look at the evidence. When whites were at their worst, we were at our best. As I said, in 1930 to 1940, when segregation and racism was enshrined in law, blacks had the highest marriage rate of any group in society. Elderly people could walk safely in those communities without fear of being assaulted by their grandchildren. So let's look at the evidence. When we refused access to hotels, we built our own hotels, financed by our own means. The Wallahaji in Atlanta, the Carver and Calvert Hotel in Florida, the St. Charles in Chicago, the St. Teresa in New York. I could go on and on. When we were denied access to colleges, we built our own. And in fact, our small business formation rate was higher than whites in the 20s, and that really determines any group's participation in the economy. It is not what government does for you or what white people do. In fact, I think those who continue to push this race agenda are Eurocentric. They assume that the destiny of blacks is determined by what white people do. That has never been the case. We closed the education gap in the South between 1920 and 1940. How do we do it? Julius Rosenwald, the CEO of Sears, came together with Booker T. Washington, and he put up $4 million. The black community matched it with $4.8 million. We built 5,000 schools to teach ex-slaves how to read and write. And as a consequence of that study, that in between 1920 and 1940, the education gap in the South between whites and blacks was 3 years. 8th grade for whites, 5th grade for blacks. Within 20 years, that gap closed within 6 months. There were 5 high schools at the turn of the century in New York, Baltimore, Washington, Atlanta, and New Orleans. They had used textbooks, overcrowded classrooms, half the budgets of white schools, but every one of those schools out-tested every white school in those cities. If we were able to close the education gap between 1920 and 1940 through self-determination and hard work, if we were able to out-test white schools in those cities, then the question is, in those same schools today in Baltimore, for instance, where they're run by blacks, not a single student could read at grade level or perform at grade level. And so how can you say that it is racism that is the cause of the present day challenges when under segregation we achieved? One other example we gave from our studies. In 1943, blacks were prohibited from being naval officers. Eleanor Roosevelt persuaded her husband to train him, so they selected 16 black college-educated men for training, the Naval Academy, not the Academy, Naval Training Center. The Navy says, aha, we're going to give these black cadets in 8 weeks what we give white cadets in 16, so they'll wash out. When these brothers found out what the deal was, they covered the windows in their barracks and stayed up all night and studied. When they were tested, they scored in the 90th percentile.
Wow.
So then they said, well, they cheated. So they tested them individually. They scored in the 93rd percentile. 13 of them eventually became naval officers. They called them the Golden 13. You can look it up. That test, the test scores today has never been bettered. So, again, I respond to people with evidence. The incarceration rates of blacks from the turn of the century up to the 60s was under 25%.
Incarceration was under 25%. Where are we at
It
today?
shot up to I think it was like 90,000 blacks were in jail in 1960. That went up to 900,000 over the next 30 years.
Why do you think that is? What happened? What changed?
In our studies, red, white, and black, we looked at the experiences. We looked at 6 major plantations to find out what the state of marriage was of slaves. 75% of those slaves had a man and woman raising children. The nuclear family continued to prosper in the face of segregation for 100 years, but all of that changed in the 60s with the poverty programs.
Lyndon Johnson?
Yes. Johnson came in, and what happened was the social scientists who were pushing socialism on America, Cloud and Piven at Columbia, said if you disconnect work from income, then school dropout rates will increase, drug addiction, all of those things. And so what the government did was offer welfare as an alternative to a man in the house. We relaxed the rules, we separated work from income, and as a consequence, that was supported by the Black Power movement. Also, the women's movement was anti-man. And so you had a combination of social policy, but policy alone wouldn't have done it. The federal government enticed welfare, blacks to go on welfare. Welfare used to be stigmatized in the black community. But the federal government began to interpret it as reparations and entitlements. They withdrew any requirement that you should tell the paternity of the father, paternity in cases of pregnancy. All of these, so that more blacks came into the welfare system in the first 5 years of the 70s. That millions flooded into the system at a time when the unemployment rate was under 4%. So it is a combination of social policies plus the civil rights movement morphed into a race grievance industry, and many of those civil rights leaders became mayors and elected to public office, where we spent $22 trillion during that period on programs to aid.
And who was that during that time? Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson during that time. And unfortunately, some of the people that marched with Martin Luther King, what he's talking about.
The poor, where 70 cents of every dollar went not to the poor, but those who served the poor.
What percentage of it?
70%.
70% of the 22 trillion went to the people that serve the poor.
They ask which problems are fundable, not which problems are solvable. So in other words, a friend of mine described it this way. He's having a cabin built in Wisconsin. His electrician is a drunk, and the carpenter is has one leg. Their value to him is their skill. But if he was a disabilities director, their value to him would only be the disability. So we have a situation where we have really created a commodity out of poverty.
And by the way, when you're saying these numbers, what it makes me think about is this. So why, if you go back 1940s, only 4% of kids that were born in America are to to a single mother.
Right.
Okay, that increased from 4% to 40%.
Right.
Okay, and the numbers are staggering where it's at today, specifically
70%.
in 70% in blacks and different in different communities. Why do you think this happened? And if you were to say, well, here's how we can get away from this. This is how to fix it. So
At Buckeye Nissan, your car is more than just transportation. It's also an investment and deserves.
Get away from this. This is how to fix it. So why did it happen? How did we get here? Two, how would you fix it?
Well, first of all, we got here because we had the social policy that incentivized single parents. In other words, I had a young couple. She said that my husband, my husband's a janitor and I'm a secretary, and he lost his job. She said, I applied for welfare as a married couple and they refused me. But she said, if I was a single mother, then I can get help. And so you really provide a disincentive for marriage, and you wonder why you get it. You get more of what you reward and less of what you punish. And so over those decades, we have punished single parent households. The more you work, the more in other words, the more you work, the more perverse incentives for you. If I work and get a raise, I'm going to lose child care. So that's why we have a system that disincentivizes work and marriage.
And you had certain politicians that would use that, but they would spin it for votes. Oh, we're paying poor women to have kids. You would hear that in political speeches. I'm going to change that. We're paying poor women to have kids. And it made it sound like that the poor women were the problem.
Right.
That they're just taking advantage of it. When you go back on what you're talking about, I think it's important to look at Lyndon Johnson and remember when they were saying the Great Society, it was Great Society for who? Because the government was our government has been actually pretty bad at getting Americans to move and change. They're pretty good at getting us upset, but they really don't get Americans, if you look at history, to really move and change. Our government has never really led, but our government has been excellent at being a catalyst of where they want us to go and to let us go. And to your point, they create this catalyst. What they say with explosive, the explosive isn't the problem, it's the catalyst you put in the explosive, so always keep those guys separate. Government has been the catalyst, and what you're talking about is what they did, is they knew what they were doing, and they knew that these things would be a catalyst of changing behavior because they couldn't stand at the pulpit of government and demand that you change, but they could put things out there and sit back and watch, and that's what you're saying.
Right, but I also realized that the question is, what are solutions? If you say that 70% of those families are raising children that are dropping out of school, it means 30% are not. What we do at the Woodson Center is we go into low-income communities and we go into the homes of the 30% to find out what is going on in those households. These are people who are raising children that are not dropping out of school, they're not in jail, they're not on drugs, they're confronted with the same economic circumstances, and so the question is, what is it that's going on there?
Right,
that's
the success excludes.
Success.
Yes.
So that's why I fault conservatives also, is that they have been preoccupied when it comes to poverty, but only studying failure. So Charles Murray and some of the others, all they do is talk about, okay, if people on welfare, let's take away the perverse incentives. I'm for work requirements. I'm for drug testing. But you can't stop there. What we do at the Woodson Center is that we go look for capacity. And so many of the people in the 30%, we need to hold them up and take what works for the 30% and expand it to the 70%. And that's what we do. But it's a moral and spiritual crisis, and it is not an economic and social crisis. But policy, be the left or right of center, takes very little into account of restoration, moral redemption, faith. And many of our groups who have been able to survive under the worst of circumstances is because of their faith. But the whole issue of faith is not even a factor in supporting people's restoration. We have gone into some of the most drug-infested, crime-ridden neighborhoods where there were 53 gang murders in the 5 square block area in 2 years, 25 years ago, DC. We supported 5 young men who were ex-offenders who came to Christ and became redeemed. But they have the moral authority and the social trust of their peers, and so they went into these neighborhoods and brought the leadership of these kids who were doing destructive things, and they became agents of remoralization of these kids. And it's just like in the marketplace, only 3% of the people are entrepreneurs. They generate 70% of the jobs, right? Well, a lot of these organizations are social entrepreneurs. It only takes a small number of them, if you can change them and make them an agents of a restoration, they can change a whole community. And we found that to be the case where in this community called Benning Terrace, by just going in and reaching 16 kids who were leading predators and changing their values and their attitudes.
How do you do that?
By witnessing to them. You take some man who has been in jail, who has faced all the challenges from an abused household, and saying, you are not defined by the worst of what you were. And I'm a witness that you don't have to stay there because you've been there.
Where did this self-help mindset come to you? Where did this self-help mindset come?
By looking at what we did in the past. In other words, what I've done by learning if our people could, in the face of slavery and discrimination, build families and restore their communities, then all we've got to do is go back and take the values that served the interests of our people then and apply them today. In other words, taking old values and apply them to new realities with the consequent.
I'm gonna stop right here. Remember those of you black men watching this channel, remember the Million Man March back in '95? Basically, what did Farrakhan said the whole time? He was saying about self-accountability. This is what he was saying at the time. And when over 1 million black men, he said, this is the problem. Was self-accountability. Take back the community. That's what at that time, that's what the Nation of Islam was talking about. And then, then it came back later on. They did another one so many years later. Then it came with the women and the families. Self-accountability. Self-accountability. That's all you kept on hearing about this. So a lot of times, what it is that some people don't want to let go, and some people, they've been programmed to think that, the NIGG. I hate to say it, shiftless, lazy, and incompetent was supposed to be placed on it. Keep up the record. Then there's a force behind you to keep you thinking this way. And then when I say it like the NIGGER, it's what in someone who have the racist mentality, that's what they see you. So when that shiftless, lazy, ignorant bastard of a person, incompetent person, that's what plays the stereotype out. They want you to. There's a segment of society on both sides that wants you to play that stereotype out. Then they can say that you incompetent, that you don't want to apply yourself, that you're ignorant, you don't want to educate yourself, and then you and they sit like in the movie Glory. They have a mind like children. You ever see the movie Glory? Go back and watch that movie Glory. When how it's connected. When Matthew Broderick and the other guy was sitting on a horse, and he was in this and that black Confederate the black regiment, and they was going in there, and they was going and tearing up the house. This during the Civil War. Watch what that man said. I said, listen what he said. Go back and watch the whole movie Glory. Those you watch Glory know what I'm talking about. Go back and listen when that scene when they said the horse. He said, General, he said, call your men back. and then he let the, and so after they ran off the Confederate soldiers, they have the black soldiers storm the house, and you heard that conversation. That's how from that point of that movie, that's how America sees some black people. I said, Leonard, go on. You think that these men gonna be able to capability of having an army? This is what he said. This was in the movie. Go back and watch that movie Glory with Matthew Broderick and Denzel Washington, and watch the whole movie. That tells you that was history. And what the history it placed in present day today. They saying the same thing. Now we don't know what political affiliation at the time during the Civil War, but we know the mindset, whether it was on the Republican side, the Democrat side, whether north or south, it didn't matter. It's the mindset. And this say you can do better. No. And it goes back to what I'm saying off the slam page. You got some black people that don't want to get off the plantation. No, we need massa. No, And when black people know it's time to do for itself. No. We need. And so sometimes the biggest, and so somebody said, you're free now. You're free. You can anything you want. We won't do that. You're free. You can free. No, they ain't. You want to do something like that. Remember what Malcolm X said about the conservative and the liberal? Go back and watch them videotapes. He was trying to awaken it. That's why so many people respect Malcolm and X. Even other people do, because they really heard him. And sometimes we as the people, we don't hear people. We think we get so pride, and some of us get so much pride, and we don't want to hear. But until it takes another race of human beings who have the knowledge and tell you the same thing this black person just told you, then you'll listen. That's the truth. So you've been indoctrinated. That to see that even some of your own that reach to the pinnacle, that choose to go back and help each other out, you won't even listen. Some black people will fight other black people because they're jealous at them. They think they're being better than them or whatever. It's like, no. If a black person rises up and tries to say, hey, I'm trying to get you sick, go this direction. It's time to get off. No, you player hate. You hating, and it goes back to what I was saying. And so sometimes we put words on as each other as black people among each other that we can't do it. Meanwhile, sometimes there are other people, and this is true. It's not always white supremacy. It's black people keeping you bound in white supremacy. That's telling you, you can't do that. No, it's impossible. We gonna be the shiftless, lazy people, ignorant, incompetent people that they are. And I know that's kind of extreme, but that's what is being perpetuated out. And sadly, and somebody said, I don't understand. There's a segment of people say, I don't understand. Why don't they get up? Why don't some of these people get up? Why do they keep going back to the past? That's why. Sometimes it does come to our accountability as people. And it's true. When someone says, you're free. You go create your own thing. You're free. Free? No, man, you can't do that. Like, wow, really? So sometimes, and some people, they can't understand that because they never count. Like, what's wrong with these people? Hey, come on, get up and do something. They would have kept you bound in the past. But bound. I remember, and then you heard what he said, even out of the past. Look what they were able to do in 1940 when they were segregated. Even though they went the most hostility time as black Americans. segregation, everything, lynchings, all that, but they still manage. The man's telling the truth. That older man's telling the truth on that second video. And King Von was the next generation. And guess who stopped them? It wasn't white people, like he said. It was black people. Why? Because there's a segment of people that don't want to see you rise. There's a segment of black people who probably in wealth don't want to see you rise, don't want to see you bound. No, we're gonna keep them down. See, ain't always the people. It's a collective people against you. But they keep on saying us that the world is black and white. It's not always all white people. There's some black people agree with it, and they out there in the wealthy areas too, and they're coming out their policies to help you. Sometimes, and that's why some people get so mad at the black community as far as some of these pastors. Some pastors ain't addressing this. That's why some people are not going into the churches. That's why some people not listening to people, because like, okay, I can give you word and give you a talk down and beat down about this, but I'm not trying to help provide for the ones that ain't trying to provide a solution. Now to the churches that do that, God bless them. But there's other churches ain't doing it, ain't stepping out to the plate. And that's why some people are so hard on it, because the political people that you have a relationship between the layouts, between the community and that political side, those people that run it in your local district, in your office, you have a layout. But soon they said, all right, Pastor, here's a check now for 20, when I get elected, it's 20, 30,000. And it's like, then they change up all of a sudden. And then the people pick that up, what you doing. That's why and this is some churches, not all churches, but that's what they do. They hit you spiritually. And they know your spiritual leaders. And they know that they got that charisma, or that woman that like to want to just try to tongue lash it. This is what you need to do. This is wrong with you black people. You better da. It's like, wait a minute, hold up. Stop disrespecting me like that as an individual. God made me not just to be a part of the ethnic, like she said. God made me be a separate individual. And that's something that black people got to respect other black people when it comes to stop tongue lash when it comes to that. When it comes to voting. If somebody don't agree with you, they don't agree with you. Stop telling you better to say this was wrong with us. That's when we can come as the people. But meanwhile, you're not seeing the whole bigger picture. You're not listening to the other side of it. This is the reason why you're bound. Spiritually, you're bound. And you don't even see it. And there's a lot of people in my mother's generation, I'm Gen X, my mother's a baby boomer, don't see it. They still thinking back that. They gave up the fight. Some of them have given up the fight. Sorry to call it, and they can't understand the next generation, the millennials and the Gen Zs, because some of them have given up the fight. They had the fight, but they gave it up. They gave up to the social program. They gave it up. That's why they're suffering. That's why, and then they come back. I don't understand these young people. Why they keep doing it? When someone brings a solution, they get on. Some hidden hand behind it, put paranoid in their brain like they did on that council meeting. When their grandkids is doing some mischievous, or those young people, they say, then you want the cops to come in and crack heads. When Ken Randall was trying to solve the problem, so they would have to keep getting into trouble with the police. And then it could be a layout that even the police can come in there and have activity with them. But like he said, it's got to be government. They think that they're doing some kind of conspiracy. Trying to teach young men to stay out of trouble so they won't be out there causing mischief in the community. And guess who hold them back? Not white supremacy, not even white people, black people. Yeah, Nice going. Now, hopefully the man don't get discouraged. Young man don't get discouraged. He did more things than the other guy who claimed to go to school in Philadelphia in Delaware and still talking for 13 years. He did it in within a year or two. And he do it, shows you the legitimate and everything. And some black people don't even get behind that. Yes, and white supremacy is black paranoia. Alright then, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoy this video. Share, like, and subscribe, and share with this other people. Shout out to her channel and to the guy that's interviewing. Alright then, be blessed. Until next time, see you on this video.